You may think this machine in front of me is a KTM 790 Adventure, but you'd be wrong. Oh no, this is not a motorcycle at all. This is a rocket ship. Before we jump in, I just want to say thank you to Cyclops Adventure Sports for sponsoring this video and adding a lot of their products to this bike, which I'll show you in a minute. I've got about 3,000 miles on my KTM 790 Adventure, and in that time, I've taken it on the NorCal BDR and various other types of adventures. So today, I'm sharing 7 things you should know before you buy a KTM 790 Adventure. These things to know videos are less stats and specs and stuff that you can find in any review, and more just sort of a glimpse into the ownership experience, the kinds of things you don't really realize or understand until you've owned and ridden a bike for a while. And the first one is what I said in the intro. This is not a motorcycle. This is a rocket ship. Admittedly, I'm not a sport bike guy. The street is a means to an end for me, but I legitimately do not understand why anyone would want a bike faster than this. It has instant passing power, like hitting the turbo boosters the second you twist that throttle. It's fast. It'll throw your neck back. It has plenty of power. I don't want to speak for you. I'm sure you're a very nice, even-keeled person, but for me, this thing makes me ride like an because I can. I just do not like being behind people because I know I can get around them in 2 seconds flat. I tend to ride pretty quickly while I'm riding this bike. Be warned, the temptation to twist the throttle and hear that intake noise and just pass people is difficult to resist. It's a fast bike. It's a fast bike on the street. It's a fast bike off-road. That's why they're so fun. And because of that, I very much do not recommend this bike for a new rider. If you're like, oh, I'm gonna get my first adventure bike, I don't think it should be this one. Even if you kept it in rain mode all the time, the temptation to really twist that throttle is there. There's a lot here. In fact, I'll talk about it later, but this is a bike that I think most average riders will never even utilize the full capability of. Just know it's a very fast bike. It's quick, fast, fun, and twisting that throttle is very tempting and difficult to resist. Number 2 thing to know before you buy a KTM 790 Adventure is one of the most unique features of this bike, and one that does get talked about a lot, but I'm here to tell you, having owned and ridden it for months now, it's very, very true, even though it seems like it's too good to be true. The center of gravity on this bike, it weighs about 460-ish, 470 pounds, but the center of gravity, because the tank is all down low, is so unbelievably low. It's just a massive difference that you can tell as soon as you start trying to lean the bike over and maneuver it in anything tight or difficult, or even just moving the bike around the garage. That center of gravity, where the weight is, makes a big difference in how a bike feels and handles. And this design is unique, and I don't think anyone's done it better than this in a bike this size yet. So the 790, 890 Adventures with those low slung fuel tanks really have a unique setup, and it makes them easier to ride than a bike this size should be. This thing eats up technical terrain like a champ. It's very confidence inspiring in the technical stuff because it's easy to lean over and make those tight corners and ride slowly, and just all the things that you would think a bigger, heavier bike would be difficult. This is less difficult than pretty much any other big bike that I've ridden. Number 3 thing to know before you buy a KTM 790 Adventure, and you knew it was coming, but reliability is a concern. There is a lot of chatter out there about things like camshafts. Now, current thinking, as far as I can tell in the community, is that this is a 24, and that the 24s and up are not having the same issues because KTM did make some slight adjustments, mainly to get more oil onto that camshaft. But the first gen 790s in particular are pretty well known for that camshaft failure issue. I personally bought this bike because I wanted to test the KTM ownership experience, because I wanted to know if I was just downplaying and crap talking them for no reason. And I have had a few issues. Most notably, and I haven't really mentioned this anywhere else yet, it was in the shed for a month because I was using other bikes in the garage, and I went to get it out of the shed, and there was about a half a quart of oil in my skid plate. Now, I've been trying to track down where it's come from. Most likely candidate is the countershaft seal, but I haven't had any luck yet. I just wanted to film it and document it before I take it in for a warranty repair, but that's probably my next step. So I have had a decent oil leak, and I have not worked on this bike. Only KTM has. They did my oil changes. The single cylinder start thing is still a problem on these KTM twins. It literally just died on me when I tried to start it to bring it out here. Things like electronics are notoriously finicky. Like, my favorites won't stay saved. They've been erased again. That happened multiple times on my Nord, and it's happened here on the 790. That's not a deal breaker, but it is a little annoyance. I did have a moment on the NorCal BDR when it wouldn't start. It just would not detect the chip in the key, which was a problem several thousand miles from home. I eventually did get it started, but it took a lot of turning it on and off again. It is not a perfect, don't think about it, completely reliable machine. I don't think any KTM is. Just know you're going to hear chatter and you're going to have questions about reliability. if you choose to buy a KTM 790 Adventure. These are now made in China, so you can think about that however you do, but that does influence some people's thoughts on reliability and build quality. It does come with a 2-year warranty, and if you get your services done at the dealership, they will extend that. I've read an extra year or an extra 2 years. I think it depends on the model. I thought it was up to 4 years on this bike, but I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on that. The number 4 thing to know before you buy a KTM 790 Adventure is it has probably the best off-road electronics package in the industry. Definitely the best one in a bike at this price point, because they take the electronics package from the bigger, more expensive bikes, from the flagship bikes like the Norden and the 890. It's the same setup in this bike. It has a 6-axis IMU. It is very hard to find a bike with a 6-axis IMU for $11,000, which is what this costs, and that gives you unparalleled amounts of traction control, slip control. It's got lane-sensitive ABS. This bike is very intuitive with the off-road mode. I have barely used the rally mode, which I have unlocked because the off-road mode is just so good, so intuitive. And that's in sand, deep mud, whatever you want. When you're trying to spin the tire, it will let you. When you start to power slide into a corner, it will save you at a certain point, but it lets you do it. So it's very intuitive, very good. I'm continually impressed with the KTM off-road mode in a way that I have not been with other manufacturers' off-road modes, and particularly not at all in any bike for the $11,000 range. Finding electronics that'll stand up to the rigors and vibrations of successful off-road riding and the smashing impacts of less successful riding is a real challenge. Companies seem to use the cheapest possible options for turn signals, which may be fine for a street bike, but adventure and dual sport riders need more. Cyclops Tough Lights are the answer. No other company is going to ask you to smash their product as hard as you can with a bat. Yet Cyclops did exactly that at the Touratech Rally last year. Tough Lights feature a spring-loaded stock to prevent damage from crashes and impacts with brush and trees along the trail. They bend 360 degrees but are stiff, durable, and nearly unbreakable. I have their lights on my 790 and they're awesome, a true upgrade from the stock blinkers in many ways beyond just the increased durability. The Tough Lights turn your turn signals into additional running lights on the front and rear brake lights for added visibility, and they're a ton brighter than your factory LEDs. Cyclops sells plug-and-play kits for most KTMs and Huskies and the Tenere 700. They also sell a generic kit with bullet connectors that'll work with just about any bike. No resistors required, and they have more bike-specific kits coming all the time. Tough Lights come with a 2-year warranty and come with the best customer service and installation advice in the industry, because you can literally call or email Brian or Daryl directly for help if you need it. I watched Brian install mine on the 790, and it was as easy as removing the front plastic and plugging them into the existing connectors. Yes, it is so easy, even a dork could do it. Click the link in the description or just head over to CyclopsAdventuresports.com. Make sure you use promo code DORK in the road to save 10% off your Tough Lights or any other product from their website. Daryl and Brian thoroughly test their products, mostly on their 890 Adventures. They are top-tier amazing riders. I have great faith in their products, and I think you'll be impressed with them too. Speaking of top-tier riders, the number 5 thing you need to know about the KTM 790 Adventure is that unless you're a top-tier rider, like top 10% of riders out there, the most hardcore, it's going to be more than adequate for you as a rider. Most of us mere mortals will not benefit from a faster bike or better suspension than this. Unless you're gonna rail desert whoops at 60 plus, this bike will take you just about anywhere you wanna go. It's as fast as I wanna go on the street and incredibly confidence-inspiring on the dirt. The stock suspension is not adjustable, but it is adequate. If anything, it's set too stiff, and this is coming from an overweight rider. I have not managed to bottom it out. The WP setup is a good brand. It's a good overall across-the-board setup for 90% of the riders out there, and it is way cheaper than a KTM 890 or a bigger, more expensive motorcycle, but it is damn near just as good, in my opinion, as an average rider, which, well, most of us are. Number 6 thing to know about the KTM 790 Adventure, this is more personal, but you'll never trust it. I will never trust this motorcycle. It has not yet left me stranded. Like I said, it only has 3,000 miles, but every tiny issue is like a confirmation of my suspicions about this bike being unreliable to me. I live in constant fear of electronic gremlins and random issues. The oil leak and the wonky electronics issues that they've known about for a long time, particularly that not saving your settings things. My Norden had that same issue and they just haven't fixed it. These are not new issues and they're always top of mind. And plus with the, overwhelming noise online about the camshaft and the other bigger, more major issues, dirt ingestion into the engine is another big one. It's hard to just trust that this bike is gonna last you forever. It's hard to not hear a weird noise or feel something weird and think, oh, there it goes. And on a Honda, I don't feel the same way. I'm biased. Hondas are my favorite bikes, obviously, but I don't trust this KTM. I don't know if I ever will. and you may feel the same if you own one yourself. And the seventh and final thing to know about owning and riding the KTM 790 Adventure is that it is probably the best value in adventure bikes that there is. So long as you don't factor in reliability and long-term maintenance and repair costs, which are hard to determine. That's a huge caveat. But out of the box, it is the best value in adventure bikes. You do not need to spend 50% more on an 890, a Norden Tiger, or Desert X when this bike is 90% as good as those bikes. And honestly, the difference in capability, the upper echelon is probably something that most of us mere mortals will never touch or utilize anyway. If anything, it's going to make the rest of our riding less comfortable because it's too stiff and too fast and whatever. So if you're thinking about one of those bigger bikes, I would encourage you to give the 790 a try, give it a test ride. You're going to be impressed by it. You may decide, well, hell, I'm just going to spend 11 grand on the bike and save that other 5 grand for gear and trips. Seriously, it's that good. If you've been discounting it, if you haven't considered the new one because it doesn't have an R version, because it doesn't have adjustable suspension, just take the time to test ride it. I think you'll be impressed. I was blown away the first time I rode it. I wanted one right then. The value on this bike is insane for $11,000, so long as you understand that the ownership experience is a bit more involved than a Honda would be. I've ridden a lot of bikes now. I've made it my mission to ride as many entry-level to mid-range adventure bikes as possible so that I can give the best possible recommendations to people who ask. There is nothing like a KTM. There are plenty of adventure bikes that feel good, that feel great, that ride awesome. I love the Desert X. I love the Tiger. They don't feel like this bike. They feel like a heavier, bigger bike. This one has some magic, mostly in that low center of gravity, where it doesn't feel as prevalent, as important, as prominent. Plus, just the sheer thrill and joy of riding a KTM. It is a unique experience. The ownership experience is unique. The riding experience is unique. And not all of the unique things are good. It can be uniquely bad as well in terms of reliability and peace of mind. But in terms of the pure riding experience, when you start it up and twist the throttle, it's pretty unique. And I think if you haven't considered it, you should. I know there are a lot of other KTM 790 Adventure owners out there. I would love to hear about your experience in the comments. And I know other people who are watching this video shopping for a 790 Adventure would also love to hear how your experience has been with reliability and what you agree or disagree with in terms of the 7 things that I just shared. Thank you to Cyclops for sponsoring this video and for really tricking out the 790 Adventure. Pop over to the website, check that out. Thanks to them for sponsoring this video, and thanks to Daryl and Brian for being awesome guys. But for now, and as always, I just want to say thank you very much for watching, and please do not forget to be excellent to each other. Thank you.
Excellent!